The other dynasty. Okay. The other dynasty, leave the fan. The other dynasty, Islam was split so much, and they were especially going and hunting down the Sufi sheikhs and saying that it is not a part of Islam. Correct? Tasawwuf was not ruling. It became something that is underground. Okay, turn it off. So, and also because the Ottoman Khilafat, it was not based on race. It was not based on colonialism, meaning one race imposing its superiority in every facet. Today's 4th of July. There's a difference between patriotism and nationalism. Patriotism is saying that you have to be loyal, patriotic to your country. Nationalism is saying, number one, you are number one, everyone else is garbage. You are number one. Prophet ﷺ is not teaching that. And so the Ottomans are taking that very carefully. They're not teaching that. There was enough time, ruling over 500 years, 600 years, for the Turks to impose that colonialism. Everyone, if they did what the Arabs did, if they did what the Spanish did, if they did what the British did, everyone from Eastern Europe to Western China would be speaking Turkish. From the steppes of Russia down to North Africa, and every other country and continent and group that is swearing allegiance to the Khilafat, they'll be made Turkish. First thing they do, they make you to change your language. So you cannot communicate with each other. You cannot communicate the language that you have been communicating in for thousands of years. You cannot communicate with your own father. You cannot communicate with the past. You're crippled. So you have this psychosis that is happening. You become a little bit crazy. Who am I? What am I? Am I this? Am I this? Am I? Whole time you're wondering who you are. Does that make a man to become strong? Can you move civilization forward? You cannot. Civilization is not tall buildings and technology. They had an opportunity to do that. They didn't. It's very easy to do that. It's the easiest way. But they didn't, because it is not Sunnat. So, there are other reasons, spiritual, but we're not going to get into that too much. That's what makes them very different. You have to understand first how the founders of the Ottoman Empire, for what reason they found themselves, where they came from. You have to understand then, after that, when they had power, what they did. You got to try to understand then, when they conquered Constantinople, Istanbul, what was the reason for that? And we have to try to understand when Sultan Selim Khan then took the Khilafat, under whose orders he took that. It's very difficult these days to read history according to Islam, according to Muslims, according to belief. Because every branch of language, especially history, are taught by those, not only, they say history is written by the winners, the victors, no? Not only is it written by the victors, but it's written by those that they've been fighting Islam for over 1,000 years. It is similar to learning history from your enemies. I'm not saying it's 100% wrong, 100% bad, this or that, but the basis now. The basis of Western education is also to say education, Western education, only objective kind of education must only come from the West, nowhere else. No other civilization has the power of objectivity, empiricism, rationality, whatever words you want to put there. What happens if tomorrow China takes over the whole world? They're going to say, we can easily wipe off the ascendancy of Western civilization. That's only been ascendant for a few hundred years. China is a civilization that's over 4,000 years old. India is 5,000 years old. What is a few hundred years? It's a blip in their view of their own history, of their own lives. Whatever they take over, they can easily just wipe everything out and say, now we're going to start again. We won't even remember anything that has happened. What if India would take over? So, as believers, we must know also that Allah is still Lord of this world, you know. Allah is still watching. Although people are going to say, declaring, when was that? 1960s, I believe, declaring on Time magazine. What they declare? Yeah, they say God is dead. Yeah, because we don't believe in God, we believe in Allah. Completely different. What is God? Isa alayhi salam is saying God. God. Good. God. You understand? You can say. They say, we didn't say. We didn't say. We're not attacking them. So this is the sign of Akhir Zaman, that they say the owner is not here anymore. We killed the owner. Now we are the new owners. So we make a big mess of each other's lives. We make a big mess of each other's histories. We make a big mess of each other's lands, waters, air. Huge mess that civilizations that have functioned for thousands of years, they cannot make that mess in these thousands of years. We made a big mess like this in the last 50 years. We cannot even say 100 years. 1919. This is 2019, right? Okay, 1919, 100 years. So, how are you going to view now? There is knowledge. There is external knowledge and there's internal knowledge. How are you going to view now? External or internal knowledge, according to whose eyes? Oh, anyone can read, anyone can... No. Everyone can read, and if you are not trained to read according to the eyes of the author, according to the eyes of the owner, everyone is going to read it in a way that fits their ego. And then when that happens, there is no permission, there's no authority, there is no knowledge of that. And then they can take then something that is most useful to become the most dangerous. And they can use the most dangerous things to be the most useful things. And this is happening. Because we no longer have, we're no longer putting our Prophet to rule. Prophet is not ruling. His laws are not ruling. Allah is not ruling. Allah is still the owner, but Islam is not ruling. We are told that everyone is free to rule their own lives. This is basic premise of nationalism, especially since 100 years ago. Everyone coming together to say, I can only help you if you promise to break up all of this ruling system that you've had for hundreds of years. Why is it called kingship? Anytime you mention kingship in these days, oh, they're all bad. 100%, all bad. Nothing good. Nothing good. If you talk about sultans and khalifas, oh, even worse. The most bad, they're going to say. Just to be brainwashed to think that way, that everything is completely, it's already wrong. So, they have their history, we have our history as well. But is not for anyone to guess. Allah is the owner of everything. Who speaks for Allah? His Prophet. Shaitan does not speak for Allah. Abu Jahl does not speak for Allah. Firaun does not speak for Allah. You understand? The prophets, they speak for Allah. And the prophets, they left the inheritors to continue. This is the meaning of khilafat, representatives. When you take away the representatives, the successors, to speak for the sake of Allah, and like what we're talking about today, turning and turning in the widening gyre. They say the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Correct? This was written when? 1900s. When it's turning into 1900. They left the 1800s, turning into the 1900s. They're saying this. They say turn in the, gyre. It's an English word too, from gyro. From, what? Not gyro. They call gyro here. What do you call? Turning. So you're turning, but you're turning and it's getting bigger and bigger. They say, in the old days, you have the falcon, the bird. It is a sport of kings, no? But the falcon, you cannot hear the falconer, the man. He's going around, circling everywhere, but the one who controls it doesn't move. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. The things fall apart because the center cannot hold. Because of that, there's chaos, anarchy. So that was 100 years ago. Imagine what he would have written now. We're living in these times, but the Prophet ﷺ had warned us about these times 1400 years ago. He had told his companions everything that was going to happen from his time up till Judgment Day. Nothing was left for guesswork. This knowledge, though, was not given to every Sahabi. Those who were there, they were there. Those who remembered, they remembered. Those who didn't remember, they didn't remember. There's this thing called permission. And those who remembered and they're given the permission to pass down this kind of knowledge, then they pass it down to those who are preparing. And this kind of knowledge, mostly it is through the sheikhs, through the tariqats, through tasawwuf, preparing for things that are going to happen in the future. We've reached to those times. Islam is not apocalyptic, saying, end of the world is going to come, give up everything. End of the world is going to come, give up everything. It is not. Although the Prophet says to remember death often. Although Hazrat Umar, the one who represents authority and power, he had a ring that says what?
Death is enough of an advisor to you, Ya Umar.
He's saying that ring is addressing to him. He says, Ya Umar, death is enough of an advisor for you. The same Hazrat Umar who had a person to walk in front of him when he appears in public to say, don't forget, Ya Umar, you're going to die. Imagine you go now in front of where? Anywhere, they're celebrating, the leaders are celebrating. You go, don't forget, you're going to die. What's going to happen? Hazrat Umar himself, he hired a man, paid money from his own pocket to say, you have to say this, you have to remind me. And one day, he said to the man, from now on, I don't need your services. He gave the man 1 year's salary, and he says, now you can go. The man was confused, and he says, Ya Umar, why is it that I'm not needed anymore? And he says, because today I see a white beard, white hair in my beard, and this is reminding me that I'm going to die. So I don't need you anymore. So although the Prophet ﷺ, every prophet did, Sahabis, those with high levels of spirituality, they remember death often. They are not apocalyptic. They are not saying, destroy everything, burn everything down, give up on everything, end of the world is coming, go crazy. No. It still worked. They knew what was going to. They had their leader, their sheikh, their teacher, is the Sultan of Ilmul Ladin, the Sultan of hidden knowledge. And that knowledge was passed down to them. So they know. In the year 1000, in Islam, 1000, there was a big thing going on. People also think that it's the end of Qiyamah is here. You're saying because Prophet ﷺ is saying, one day, the world has only 7 days. Allah is saying, Hadith Qudsi, the world has 7 days. But it's not 7 days according to Tawrat, this or that. It's 7 days. And Prophet ﷺ is saying, one day in the presence of Allah is 1,000 years. Scholars may say, oh, it means this. Yeah, scholars may say. But the scholars are the alims of the zahir, the outside knowledge. You have the knowers of the inner knowledge also. And they're also saying something, and they're saying something else. So he's saying, and one day in the presence of Allah is 1,000 years. The world has only 7 days. And he said, I was sent as a prophet of the Akhir Zaman. I was sent, he says, as nation to a nation, like it is between Asr and Maghrib. You know how short the time is between Asr and Maghrib. Before you know, Maghrib just appear. And it says, Allah has given this nation 1.5 days. So based on so many other things, they even issued a fatwa that time. 400, this is 439. 440, saying no, it is not. They're saying, based on all this, it is not. Prophet is saying this. But possibility, less than 500 years from now, if Allah gives us life, possibility, it may happen. We're dealing with possibilities. Allah may say and Allah may change. He is the one who put, and He is the one who can remove as He likes. Anyone can question? No. But at the same time, there are things that we have to be ready for. There are things that we have to be aware of and to prepare ourselves for. That's how it is, inshallah Rahman. And the words of the Prophet speaks the truth. And the Prophet ﷺ had said, which is believed and practiced for over 1400 years, he says, after me there will be kings. After me there will be those ones who are going to rule rightly, correctly. The Khulafa Rashidin. After that there will be kings. After the kings there will be sultans. After the sultans, Allah will give the time to the tyrants, and the tyrants are going to rule. After that will be a ruling that is going to come, that is going to be like the rule of the prophets. So we are sitting and we're waiting. We're living our lives, we're believing, we're abiding by every law of this land, of this world. We're holding the law of Allah on top of our heads. And we're watching, and we're holding on to the jubbah of our Shaykh. Shaykh Abdul Karim al-Kibrisi Rabbani, Sahibul Saif. He's holding on to the jubbah of Sultan al-Awliya in this most distinguished Naqshbandi order that is coming from Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq to the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So we're holding on and we're living and we're seeing how much it is improving our lives, dunya and akhirat, and we're holding on to it. May Allah accept it, inshallah Rahman. Wa min Allahu tawfiq. Al-Fatiha.